There are moments in life when you discover your worth, not by what you own, but by how much you can endure in silence. Margaret Lawson is on her knees on the filthy floor of a public restroom at 11:47 p.m. At 41 years old and 8 months pregnant, she scrubs cracked tiles while a puddle of urine spreads toward her worn-out sneakers. The fluorescent lights flicker overhead. Maggie squints. The back pain is worse tonight. One more toilet. Just one more, she whispers to herself, using her enormous belly for support as she tries to stand. But when she attempts to rise, her legs tremble. The contraction isn't strong. Not yet. Just that familiar pressure that makes her stop, breathe, and continue. The baby moves inside her as if protesting the smell of cheap disinfectant. She had promised her child wouldn't be born like this. Alone. Tired before even taking his first breath. Maggie shouldn't be here. 6 months ago, she had a 2-bedroom apartment. She had a husband who promised to stay. She had a bank account that, though modest, at least existed. Now she has $340 in her pocket and 1 week until next month's rent. "You can do this, little one," she murmurs, caressing her belly as she walks to the next sink. "Mama can do this." The bathroom door opens with a metallic creak. Maggie freezes. It's too late for movement at the bus station. The waiting area lights have already been turned off. She's been alone since 10 p.m. Or at least she thought she was. Footsteps echo. In the corridor. Firm, masculine. Maggie's heart races. She knows the unwritten rules. Women alone in empty places need to be invisible. But she's trapped between 2 open stalls, with a bucket of dirty water and an 8-month belly. There's nowhere to hide. The footsteps stop at the bathroom entrance. "Excuse me," a male voice says, hesitant, polite. "Is anyone there? My daughter needs to use the bathroom, but the light was off." Maggie breathes a sigh of relief. Father, daughter, not danger. "Come in," she responds, turning to continue cleaning. "I'm almost done." But when she turns, her knees give out. Pain explodes in Maggie's back like a whip. She falls to her knees again, gasping, one hand braced on the wet floor, the other protecting her belly. And it's at this moment that the man sees her, really sees her, not as the invisible janitor, not as the ghost people pass without, making eye contact. He sees a pregnant woman alone on her knees in a stinking bathroom at almost midnight. If you've ever been through a moment when no one seemed to see you, leave a comment saying, "I understand." Sometimes knowing we're not alone changes everything. "My God," he murmurs. "Are you okay?" Maggie tries to stand, but shame weighs more than her body. She doesn't want to be seen like this. Not by him. Not by anyone. "I'm fine," she lies, her voice trembling. I just lost my balance." The man takes a step forward. He's well-dressed. Dress shirt, tailored pants, shoes. That cost more than Maggie's monthly salary. But there's something in his eyes. Something that looks like recognition. Do I know you?" he asks, frowning. Maggie finally manages to stand, leaning on the sink. She looks at his face. Mid-40s. Gray hair at the temples. Tired eyes. She searches. His face, trying to remember who he was, and why that weary look seemed to carry the same pain she saw in the mirror every morning. And then she remembers. 20 years ago. The community center where she worked part-time. The man who arrived late to pick up his young son because he was at the hospital with his sick wife. She stayed with the boy until 9 p.m. that night, helped with math homework while the father cried in the parking lot. "Daniel?" she whispers. His eyes widen. "Maggie? Margaret Lawson?" She nods, but before she can respond, a new contraction hits her. Stronger this time. Maggie doubles over the sink, breathing deeply, trying to control the panic beginning to rise in her throat. Because these contractions shouldn't be this close together. Not yet. Not here. "When was your last prenatal checkup?" Daniel asks, his voice suddenly urgent. Maggie closes her eyes. 3 months ago. But she's not going to tell him that. "I'm fine," she repeats, straightening up with effort. "Just Braxton Hicks. False alarms. Daniel doesn't look convinced. He looks at her swollen hands, at the ankles spilling over her old sneakers, at the employee badge hanging around her neck. And then he sees it. The advanced pregnancy, the heavy work, the time of night. All the pieces fit together into a picture he doesn't want to believe. "You're working like this?" he asks, pointing to her belly. "Shift ends at 2 a.m., Maggie responds, picking up the bucket again. "I still have 3 bathrooms to clean." "Maggie, you can't." "I can." She interrupts, firm now. "And I will. Because if I don't work, I don't eat. And if I don't eat, my baby doesn't grow." This isn't just Maggie's story. It's the story of many women who learn to survive without an audience. If you want to follow how far this courage will take her, subscribe to continue this journey with me. The silence that follows is heavier than any word. Daniel's teenage daughter appears in the doorway, stopping abruptly when she sees the scene. "Dad?" she asks, confused. "What's happening?" Daniel opens his mouth to respond. But before he can speak, Maggie feels something warm running down her legs. She looks down. For 1 second, the world goes silent, and what she sees makes her stop breathing. Maybe you know someone who has worked while pregnant, sick, or too tired to ask for help. Share this story with her. Some truths need to be remembered, because that night wouldn't end with a work shift, but with a truth that would change every life in that room. Some truths arrive quietly. Others arrive in a puddle on a bathroom floor at midnight. Maggie stares at the liquid pooling around her feet. Clear, warm, unmistakable. Her water just broke. "No," she whispers. "Not yet. Not here." Daniel sees it the same moment she does. His face goes pale. "We need to get you to a hospital," he says, moving toward her. "Now." But Maggie doesn't move. She stands frozen, one hand gripping the sink, the other pressed against her belly. Her mind races through calculations she's made 1,000 times before. Hospital means bills. Bills mean debt. Debt means losing the apartment before the baby even comes home. "I can't afford an ambulance," she says, her voice barely audible. Daniel blinks. "What?" "I don't have insurance that covers this," Maggie continues, speaking faster now, panic rising. "The hospital will want a deposit. I don't have a deposit. I don't have anything." Another contraction hits. This one doubles her over. She gasps, her knuckles white against the porcelain sink. Daniel's daughter steps forward, her young face suddenly older than her 15 years. "Dad," she says quietly, "we have to help her." There are moments that divide a life into before and after. This is one of them. Daniel pulls out his phone. His hands shake slightly as he dials. "I'm calling 911, he says, "and I'm coming with you to the hospital." "You don't understand," Maggie begins. "No," Daniel interrupts, his voice firm but not unkind. "You don't understand. 20 years ago, you stayed late with my son when I couldn't be there. You didn't ask if I could pay you overtime. You didn't ask anything. You just stayed." Maggie's eyes fill with tears. She doesn't remember it that way. She only remembers a scared little boy who needed help with fractions. "That was different," she whispers. "How?" Daniel asks. Maggie has no answer, because the truth is, she would have done it for free. She would have stayed all night if that child needed her. And now someone is offering to do the same for her. If someone ever showed you kindness when you had nothing to offer in return, you know how hard it is to accept help. Drop a below if you understand what Maggie is feeling right now. The 911 operator answers. Daniel speaks quickly, giving the address of the bus station, describing Maggie's condition. "Ambulance is 6 minutes out," he says, lowering the phone. 6 minutes. Maggie looks around the bathroom she was cleaning moments ago. The dirty mop, the half-empty bucket, the cracked mirror that's reflected her exhausted face for months. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. "My shift," she says suddenly. "I need to finish my shift or they'll fire me." Daniel stares at her. "Maggie, you're in labor." "I know," she says, a tear sliding down her cheek. "But if I lose this job, I lose everything. The weight of that sentence hangs in the air like smoke. Daniel's daughter pulls out her own phone. "What's your supervisor's number?" she asks. Maggie blinks. "What?" "Give me the number," the girl insists, her voice surprisingly steady. "I'll call them. I'll explain." "Sweetheart, you don't have to," Daniel begins. "Yes, I do," his daughter says, looking at her father with eyes that suddenly seem to see everything. "Because this is wrong, and someone has to say it." Another contraction. Stronger now, closer. Maggie's legs buckle. Daniel catches her before she falls, supporting her weight as she breathes through the pain. "How far apart are they?" he asks. 4 minutes, Maggie gasps. "Maybe less." Daniel's face goes from concerned to alarmed. "That's too close," he murmurs. "The ambulance is still 3 minutes away," his daughter says, checking her phone. Time stretches. Every second feels like an hour. Maggie can feel the baby dropping lower. The pressure is enormous. Instinct tells her something that terrifies her. This baby isn't waiting for an ambulance. "I need to sit down," she whispers. Daniel helps her to the floor, his expensive jacket cushioning the cold tile beneath her. His daughter kneels beside them, her young hand finding Maggie's. "What's your baby's name?" the girl asks softly. Maggie looks at her, surprised by the question. I haven't chosen one yet," she admits. "I was afraid to name him before I knew he was." "Okay. How many of us waited to celebrate something good because we were afraid it wouldn't last?" This story is for everyone who learned to protect their heart by hoping quietly. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Because Maggie's courage deserves witnesses. The girl squeezes her hand. "He's going to be okay," she says with the certainty only teenagers possess. "And so are you." Maggie wants to believe her. But then another contraction hits. And this one doesn't stop. The pain builds and builds. A wave that crashes without receding. Maggie cries out, her body taking over. Doing what bodies have done for millennia. "Something's wrong," she gasps. "Something's..." And then she feels it. The undeniable urge to push. "The baby's coming," she whispers, terror flooding her voice. "Right now. The baby's coming now." Daniel's eyes widen. His daughter goes pale. The ambulance siren wails in the distance, but it's still too far away. "I don't know what to do," Daniel says, his voice cracking. Maggie grabs his hand, her grip iron strong despite her exhaustion. "Neither do I," she whispers. "But we don't have a choice." In that moment, in a dirty bus station bathroom at 11:58 p.m., 3 strangers are about to become something else entirely. Because sometimes life doesn't wait for the right moment, the right place, or the right circumstances. Sometimes life just arrives and demands to be caught. Maggie's body knows what to do, even if her mind is screaming. What happens next will change all 3 of them forever. There are some moments you can't prepare for, moments when everything you thought you knew disappears, and all that's left is instinct. Maggie's scream echoes off the bathroom tiles. Daniel looks at his daughter, then back at Maggie. His hands hover uselessly in the air. "Tell me what to do," he says, his voice shaking. But Maggie can't speak. The contraction has her in its grip. Her body arches. Every muscle tightens. The urge to push is overwhelming, primal, impossible to resist. "Dad," his daughter shouts, "do something." Daniel's mind races. He's built companies, negotiated million-dollar deals, stood at his wife's bedside as she took her last breath. But this is different. This is life demanding to arrive, and he's the only one here to catch it. "Okay," he says, forcing his voice to steady. "Okay, Maggie, listen to me. The ambulance is almost here. Can you wait? Can you..." "No!" Maggie screams. I can't stop it." Another wave. Stronger. Unstoppable. Her body is doing what bodies do, whether she's ready or not. Daniel looks at his daughter. "Call 911 back. Tell them the baby is coming right now. Ask them what to do." The girl's hands shake as she dials. Stay with me, Daniel tells Maggie, kneeling closer. Look at me. Just look at me. Maggie's eyes lock onto his. Wild. Terrified. But somewhere in that terror, there's trust. Because she has no other choice. If you've ever had to trust a stranger in your darkest moment, you know this feeling. Comment, I've been there, if this story is bringing back memories. You're not alone in what you've survived. The 911 operator's voice crackles through the phone speaker. Daniel's daughter holds it between them. Is the baby crowning? The operator asks. Clinical and calm. Daniel doesn't know what that means. Maggie does. Yes, she gasps. Oh God, yes. Then we're delivering this baby right here, the operator says. Daniel's face goes white. His daughter's eyes widen. But Maggie's body doesn't care about their fear. I need you to support her, the operator instructs. And when the next contraction comes, she needs to push. Do not pull the baby. Just catch. Just catch. As if catching a human life is that simple. Daniel positions himself, his expensive suit jacket already soaked with amniotic fluid and God knows what else. I'm here, he tells Maggie. I'm right here. And then the next contraction hits. Maggie bears down with a sound that comes from somewhere ancient and powerful, a sound women have made for thousands of years in caves, in fields, in moments when civilization falls away and only survival remains. I can see the head, Daniel shouts, his voice cracking between horror and awe. Good, the operator says. One more push, maybe two. But Maggie is already pushing again. She can't stop. Her body has taken over completely. Every cell, every muscle, every breath, focused on one single purpose. Bringing this child into the world. Daniel's daughter moves closer, her young hand finding Maggie's shoulder. You're doing it, she whispers. You're so strong. You're doing it. Those words, simple, honest, pierce through Maggie's pain. Because no one has called her strong in months. No one has seen her as anything but invisible. Until tonight. Another push, another scream. And then, the head is out, Daniel shouts, his hands trembling as he supports the tiny skull. Oh my God, the head is out. One more, the operator says. One more big push for the shoulders. Maggie's vision blurs. Her strength is fading. She's been working 12-hour shifts for months. Hasn't slept more than 4 hours a night. Hasn't eaten a full meal in days. Her body has nothing left to give. I can't, she whispers. I can't do it. Yes, you can, Daniel's daughter says fiercely. You've done everything else alone. But you're not alone right now. Maggie looks at this teenage girl she's known for 10 minutes and sees something she hasn't seen in her own mirror for a long time. Belief. Maybe you've had someone believe in you when you stopped believing in yourself. That moment when a stranger's faith carried you further than your own strength could. Share this story with someone who was that person for you, because that kind of courage deserves to be remembered. Maggie takes one more breath and pushes with everything she has left. The world goes silent except for her heartbeat, Daniel's breathing, the distant wail of sirens finally getting closer. And then, a baby's cry shatters the silence, small, furious, alive. Daniel catches him, slippery, pink, perfect, and lifts him onto Maggie's chest. He's here, Daniel whispers, tears streaming down his face. He's here, Maggie, your son is, you're here. Maggie's hands find her baby, her son, her reason for surviving everything. She's shaking, sobbing, bleeding, but he's breathing. His tiny chest rises and falls against hers. His eyes squeeze shut against the harsh bathroom lights. His fists clench like he's already fighting. Hi, baby, Maggie whispers. Hi, my love. Mama's here. Daniel's daughter is crying too, her hand still on Maggie's shoulder. The three of them frozen in this moment. This impossible, beautiful, terrifying moment. The ambulance pulls up outside. Footsteps pound down the hallway. But before the paramedics burst through the door, before reality comes crashing back, Maggie looks at Daniel and his daughter. Thank you, she whispers. 2 words that carry the weight of everything. Daniel opens his mouth to respond, but then he sees it. The blood. Too much blood. Pooling beneath Maggie faster than it should. The paramedics rush in and their faces change when they see. "We need to move now," one shouts. She's hemorrhaging. Everything becomes chaos. Hands lifting Maggie onto a stretcher, the baby being checked, wrapped, placed in an incubator. Daniel and his daughter pushed aside as professionals take over. And as they wheel Maggie away, her eyes find Daniel's one last time. She's conscious. Barely. But conscious enough to whisper, "His name. His name is Daniel." And then her eyes close. The baby is safe. But Maggie's fight isn't over. Sometimes the hardest part comes after. The miracle. The hardest prayers are the ones whispered in hospital waiting rooms at 3 a.m. Daniel sits in a plastic chair, his hands still trembling. His suit is ruined. Blood. Fluid. The evidence of a life delivered on a bathroom floor. He hasn't moved in 2 hours. His daughter Emma sits beside him. Silent. Still processing what they witnessed. The baby, little Daniel, is in the NICU. Stable. Healthy. Crying with the fury of someone who arrived too early and too fast, but Maggie is in surgery, and no one will tell them anything. "Family only," the nurse said when Daniel asked for updates. He wanted to say, "I caught her son. I held him as he took his first breath. Doesn't that make me something?" But he didn't. Because the truth is, he's nobody to Maggie. Just a man who happened to be in the right place. Or maybe the wrong place, depending on how this night ends. Emma breaks. The silence. "She's going to be okay, right?" Her voice is small. Young again. Daniel doesn't know what to say. He's thought he was going to lose someone he loved before. Sat in rooms like this, waiting for doctors to deliver news that would split his life in 2. His wife died in a hospital 6 floors above where they're sitting now. The same antiseptic smell. The same fluorescent lights that make everyone look like ghosts. "I don't know, sweetheart," he says honestly. Emma's eyes fill with tears. "That's not fair," she whispers. "She survived everything else. Working while pregnant. Being alone. Having her baby in a bus station bathroom. She can't die now. If you've ever waited for news about someone you barely knew, but suddenly couldn't imagine losing, you understand what Daniel is feeling. Drop A if you've sat in a waiting room praying for a stranger who became something more. Daniel pulls his daughter close. "No," he agrees. "It's not fair. Because nothing about Maggie's life has been fair. And he's only known her for 3 hours. But in those 3 hours, he learned more about courage than he has in 20 years of success." A doctor emerges through the double doors, young, tired. Her scrubs are stained. Daniel and Emma stand immediately. "Are you family?" the doctor asks. Daniel hesitates. The lie would be easy. He could say yes. Demand information. Use his name, his influence, his money to force his way through hospital protocol. But before he can speak, "We're all she has," Emma says quietly. The doctor studies them, takes in Daniel's ruined suit, Emma's tear-stained face, the way they're both standing like their world is balanced on her next words. She makes a decision. "She lost a lot of blood," the doctor says, "postpartum hemorrhage, partum. We had to do an emergency procedure to stop the bleeding." Daniel's chest tightens. "And?" "She's stable now, weak. She'll need transfusions, rest, monitoring. But she's alive." The breath Daniel didn't know he was holding releases all at once. Emma starts crying. Relief mixed with exhaustion mixed. With something else Daniel can't quite name. "Can we see her?" he asks. The doctor hesitates again. "She's still unconscious. And when she wakes up?" The doctor pauses. "She's going to have questions. About her baby. About her job. About how she's going to manage what comes next." "What do you mean?" Daniel asks. The doctor's expression softens with something that looks like pity. "She can't work for at least 6 weeks. Probably longer. She'll need help with the baby, follow-up appointments, Medication. The doctor glances at her chart. According to her intake form, she has no emergency. Contacts. No insurance beyond basic Medicaid, no family listed. The weight of those words settles over them like snow. 6 weeks without work. For someone who was cleaning toilets at 8 months pregnant, because she had no other choice. What happens to people like her? Emma asks. When they can't work? The doctor's silence is answer enough. Maybe you know someone who fell through the cracks because they got sick, got hurt, or just couldn't keep going. This is why Maggie's story matters. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens when the system fails, and when humans decide to do better. Daniel's phone buzzes. A text from his assistant wondering where he is, why he missed tonight's dinner meeting with investors. He looks at the message for 3 seconds, then turns his phone off completely. Can you tell me which room she's in? He asks the doctor. Room 412. The doctor says. But like I said, she's still... I know, Daniel interrupts gently. I need to see her. To know she's really okay. The doctor nods slowly. 20 minutes. Then you need to let her rest. Daniel and Emma take the elevator to the 4th floor in silence. The hallway is quiet except for the beeping of monitors and the soft shuffle of night nurses making rounds. Room 412 is at the end of the hall. Daniel pushes the door open slowly. And there she is. Maggie looks impossibly small in the hospital bed. Pale, bruised, IVs running into both arms, monitors tracking every heartbeat, every breath, but alive. Emma walks to the bedside first. She looks so tired, she whispers. She is tired, Daniel says. She's been tired for a long time. He thinks about the Maggie he knew 20 years ago, young, hopeful, the kind of person who stayed late to help a scared little boy with fractions. When did the world take that light from her? And how many other women are out there right now scrubbing floors while pregnant, choosing between food and medicine, surviving in silence? Daniel pulls out his phone again. Not to check messages, to make a note. A reminder for tomorrow. Morning. What are you doing? Emma asks. Something I should have done years ago, Daniel says. Maggie's eyes flutter open, slowly, confused. She looks around the room. Sterile walls, beeping machines, 2 people she barely knows standing at her bedside. My baby, she whispers, panic flooding her voice. Where's my baby? He's safe, Daniel says quickly, moving closer. He's in the NICU. He's healthy, Maggie. He's perfect. Tears stream down Maggie's face. I named him, she whispers. I named him after you. Daniel's throat tightens. I know, he says softly. Thank you. Maggie's hand reaches for his, weak, trembling. I don't know how I'm going to pay for this, she whispers. The ambulance, the surgery, I don't have... Stop, Daniel says gently. Just stop. Right now you only have one job. What? Maggie asks. Heal, Daniel tells her. Everything else will figure out. Maggie stares at him, confusion and hope warring in her exhausted eyes. Why? She whispers. Why are you doing this? Daniel thinks about his wife, about the community center, about the night a young woman stayed late without being asked. Because 20 years ago you showed me what kindness looks like, he says. And I forgot. I built an empire, but I forgot. He pauses. You reminded me. Maggie's eyes close again, exhaustion pulling her back under. But before she drifts off, she whispers, Please don't let them take him from me. Daniel's jaw tightens, because he knows what she means. He knows how the system works. Single mother. No income. No support. The state could decide she's not capable. No one is taking your son, Daniel says firmly. But even as he says it, a social worker appears in the doorway, clipboard in hand, expression neutral. Mr. Wright, I need to speak. With you. It's about the baby. Sometimes helping someone means fighting a system designed to fail them. Daniel is about to learn just how hard that fight can be. There are people whose job is to protect children. And then there are moments when protection feels like punishment. Daniel follows the social worker into the hallway, his heart pounding. Emma stays with Maggie, holding her hand as she sleeps. The social worker is a woman in her 50s. Professional. Tired. The kind of tired that comes from seeing too much and being able to fix too little. "I'm Karen Mills," she says. "Child. Protective Services." 3 words that make Daniel's blood run cold. "Is there a problem?" he asks, keeping his voice steady. Karen looks at her clipboard. Ms. Lawson gave birth in a bus station bathroom. She has no stable housing, no income, no support system. She's been skipping prenatal care. Karen pauses. And according to the hospital, she's malnourished. Each word lands like a punch, because Daniel knows what's coming next. "We have concerns about her ability to provide a safe environment for the infant," Karen continues. "So what are you saying?" Daniel asks, though he already knows. Karen's expression softens slightly, but only slightly. "We're recommending temporary foster placement until Ms. Lawson can demonstrate stability. You're taking her baby. It's not a question. We're protecting a newborn," Karen corrects. "There's a difference. Is there?" Daniel wants to ask, because from where he's standing, it looks like punishing a woman for being poor. She just risked her life bringing that baby into the world, Daniel says, his voice rising. "She's been working herself to exhaustion to keep a roof over her head. And now you want to take the only thing she's been fighting for? If you've ever watched the system punish someone for struggling instead of helping them survive, you know this rage. Comment, this is wrong, if you believe Maggie deserves better. Sometimes our voices together matter more than we think." Karen doesn't flinch. "I understand your concern, Mr. Wright, but I have to think about what's best for the child. And you think growing up without his mother is what's best?" "I think," Karen says carefully, "that a newborn needs food, shelter, medical care, and supervision. Can Ms. Lawson provide those things right now? Today?" Daniel opens his mouth, closes it. Because the honest answer is no. Maggie can barely stand. She has no apartment she can safely return to, no job waiting for her, no savings, no family. The system is right, and that's what makes it so wrong. "How long?" Daniel asks quietly. "What? How long does she have? To prove she's stable? To get her son back?" Karen sighs. "It depends. Stable housing, steady income, completed parenting classes, follow-up medical appointments, mental health evaluation." She pauses. "Realistically, 3 to 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of her baby growing up without her. Half a year of missing first smiles, first sounds, first everything. That's not protection," Daniel says. "That's cruelty." "That's the system," Karen replies. "And I don't make the rules. I just enforce them." She turns to walk back toward the nurse's station. Daniel makes a decision. "Wait." Karen stops. "What if she had housing, and income, and support?" Karen turns back slowly, suspicion crossing her face. "Mr. Wright, if you're suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting anything inappropriate," Daniel interrupts. "I'm asking a hypothetical question. If Ms. Lawson had those things, today, right now, would you still recommend foster placement?" Karen studies him for a long moment. "Are you offering to provide those things? Answer my question first." Another pause. Longer this time. "If she had legitimate housing, documented income, and a viable support system," Karen says slowly, "then no, we would monitor the situation, but we wouldn't remove the child." Daniel nods. "Then she has all 3. Karen's eyebrows rise. "Excuse me?" "Housing. I own a property management company. I have furnished apartments available." "Mr. Wright." "Income. I can offer her employment. Administrative work she can do from home while recovering." "Mr. Wright, you can't just—" "And support. My daughter and I will be available to help with childcare, transportation, whatever she needs." Karen stares at him like he's lost his mind. Maybe he has. But when he closes his eyes, he sees his wife in a hospital bed 6 years ago, holding his hand, making him promise something. Don't become so successful that you forget what matters. He forgot anyway. Until tonight. Maybe you've made a promise to someone you lost. A promise you haven't kept yet. Share this story with someone who needs to remember theirs, because it's never too late to honor the people who believed in us. This is highly irregular, Karen says. I don't care. She's a stranger to you. No, Daniel says quietly. She's someone who helped me 20 years ago when I had nothing to offer in return. I'm just evening. The score? Karen looks at him for a long time. Then she makes a note on her clipboard. I'll need documentation, employment contract, lease agreement, references, and I'll be conducting home visits. Fine. And if anything changes? Nothing will change, Daniel says firmly. Karen nods slowly. I'll hold off on the foster placement recommendation for now. But Mr. Wright? She looks him directly in the eyes. If you're doing this to feel good about yourself, and you disappear in 2 weeks, that baby will suffer. And so will she. I understand. Karen walks away, leaving Daniel alone in the fluorescent hallway. His phone buzzes again. More missed calls. More meetings. More of the life he was living 3 hours ago. A life that suddenly feels very small. He walks back into Maggie's room. Emma looks up, her expression questioning. What did she want? Emma whispers. To take the baby. Emma's face goes pale. But they're not going to, Daniel continues, because Maggie's going to have everything she needs. Dad, what did you do? Daniel looks at Maggie, still sleeping, still exhausted, still fighting even in unconsciousness. Something I should have done a long time ago. Emma's quiet for a moment. Then she says, Mom would be proud of you. Daniel's throat tightens. Yeah, he whispers. I think she would. Maggie stirs, her eyes open slightly. Did I hear? She begins, her voice barely audible. Did someone say, foster care? The panic in her voice is immediate, primal. She tries to sit up, but the pain stops her. My baby. They can't, please. Shh, Daniel says, moving to her bedside. No one is taking him. You're both staying together. But I heard the social worker is going to sign off on you keeping your son, Daniel says, because you're going to have housing, income, and help. All of it arranged. Maggie stares at him, confusion flooding her face. I don't understand. You will, Daniel says. But right now you need to rest. Your son needs you healthy. Tears spill down Maggie's cheeks. Why are you doing this? She whispers. It's the second time she's asked. Daniel still doesn't have a simple answer. But he has a true one. Because kindness has to mean something, he says. Or what's the point of any of this? Maggie closes her eyes again, exhaustion winning. But before she drifts off, she whispers, I won't forget this, ever. Daniel watches her sleep and realizes he won't forget it either. Because 3 hours ago, he was a successful man who had everything. And somehow, he was also completely empty. Now he has a purpose, a promise to keep. But as he stands there, his phone rings. His business partner. The third call in an hour. Daniel knows what it's about. The investor meeting he missed. The deal that might fall apart. Millions of dollars hanging in the balance. He looks at the phone, then at Maggie, then at his daughter, watching him with eyes that are measuring something more important than money. Some decisions change one life. Others change who you are. Daniel is about to learn which choice defines him. Money has always talked. But tonight, Daniel is learning it doesn't always say the right things. He stares at his phone, his business partner's name flashing on the screen for the 4th time. Emma watches him from across the room. You should answer it, she says quietly. Daniel knows she's right. The Grayson deal. 6 months of negotiations, $30 million in investments, expansion into 3 new markets, everything he's worked for in the past year. All of it waiting on him, showing up to one dinner, one handshake, one performance of confidence and control. But his hands still smell like amniotic fluid and disinfectant. and he can't stop seeing Maggie on that bathroom floor, fighting for her life and her child simultaneously. If you've ever had to choose between what looks successful and what feels right, you know this moment. Drop A if you've made a choice that cost you something but saved who you are. He answers the call. Daniel, where the hell are you? Marcus, his partner, doesn't wait for pleasantries. Grayson left an hour ago. Said if you can't be bothered to show up, he'll take his money elsewhere. I had an emergency. What kind of emergency costs us $30 million? Daniel looks at Maggie sleeping in the hospital bed. The kind that matters more, he says. Silence on the other end. Then, Daniel, I know what's going on with you tonight, but you need to fix this. Call Grayson. Apologize. Grovel if you have to. No. What? I said no, Marcus. If Grayson can't handle one missed meeting, he's not the kind of partner we need anyway. Are you insane? Marcus's voice rises. Do you understand what you're throwing away? Better than you think, Daniel says quietly. He hangs up. Emma stares at him, eyes wide. Dad, did you just... Yeah, Daniel says. I did. His phone immediately starts ringing again. He turns it off completely. Dad, that deal was everything you've been working toward. Daniel sits down heavily in the chair beside Maggie's bed. I know. Then why? Because 6 years ago I missed your mother's last good day, Daniel says, his voice breaking. I was closing a deal in Seattle. She called and said she was feeling better, wanted to go to the botanical garden. I said I'd take her when I got back. Emma goes still. But she got worse that night, and she never had another good day. Tears stream down Emma's face. I've spent 6 years building an empire to prove her death meant something, Daniel continues, that I could be successful enough to honor her memory. He looks at Maggie. But tonight I realized I've been honoring the wrong thing. She didn't want me to be rich. She wanted me to be present. Emma moves to her father, wrapping her arms around him. They sit like that for a long moment, until a nurse enters. Mr. Wright? The NICU called. Baby Daniel is awake and hungry. Miss Lawson needs to try nursing if she's able. Maggie's eyes flutter open at the mention of her son. My baby? She whispers. Can I see him? We'll bring him to you, the nurse says gently. But you'll need help. You're still very weak. 10 minutes later, a different nurse wheels in a clear bassinet. Inside, wrapped in white blankets, is the smallest human Daniel has ever seen. Baby Daniel. Eyes squeezed shut, fists clenched, mouth open in a silent cry that suddenly finds its voice. The sound fills the room, angry, alive, demanding, I've. Maggie starts crying before the nurse even reaches her bedside. Oh, she whispers. Oh, my baby, my sweet baby. The nurse lifts the infant carefully, placing him in Maggie's arms, and the world stops. Maybe you remember the first time you held your child, the weight of them, the responsibility, the love so fierce it hurt. This is why we fight. This is why we survive. Subscribe so you don't miss how Maggie and her son navigate what comes next, because this is just the beginning. Baby Daniel stops crying the moment he touches his mother's skin. Instinct, recognition, home. Hi, Maggie whispers, her voice shaking. Hi, my love. I'm your mama. I'm here. I'm here now. The baby's mouth searches, rooting against her chest. He knows you, the nurse says softly. They always know. With the nurse's help, Maggie guides her son to nurse for the first time. It's awkward, painful, neither of them quite sure what they're doing. But then something clicks, and the baby latches. Maggie gasps, a sound between pain and wonder. He's eating, she whispers. He's actually eating. Daniel watches from his chair, Emma beside him. Neither of them speak, because this moment doesn't need words. This moment just needs witnesses. After 20 minutes, the baby falls asleep at Maggie's breast, milk-drunk and satisfied. The nurse takes him gently. He's perfect, Ms. Lawson. Strong, healthy. You did good. Maggie watches as they place her son back in the bassinet. When can I hold him again? she asks. Every 3 hours, the nurse says. He'll need to eat, and you need to rest between. The nurse wheels the bassinet toward the door. Wait, Maggie calls out, panic in her voice. Where are you taking him? Just to the nursery, honey. He needs monitoring, and you need sleep. But he'll be safe, the nurse promises. I'll bring him back in 3 hours, I promise. The bassinet disappears through the door. Maggie stares after it, every instinct screaming to follow. But her body won't move. She's trapped by weakness and stitches and the aftermath of almost dying. He's so small, she whispers. What if something happens? What if they... She can't finish the sentence, but Daniel knows what she's afraid of. That someone will decide she's not good enough, not stable enough, not mother enough, and take her son permanently. Nothing is going to happen, Daniel says firmly. I won't let it. Maggie looks at him, really looks at him, for the first time since waking. You keep saying that, but you don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Maybe not, Daniel agrees. But I owe someone, and she's not here anymore to collect. Maggie is quiet for a moment. Then, your wife? Daniel nods. What was her name? Sarah. Tell me about her, Maggie says softly. Daniel hesitates. He hasn't talked about Sarah in years. Not really. Not beyond the polite obituary version of her life. But something about this room, this night, this exhausted woman who just named her son after him, makes him want to remember out loud. She believed people were inherently good, Daniel begins, even when they proved her wrong. Especially then. Emma moves closer, listening. She volunteered everywhere. Community centers, food banks, homeless shelters. She said if you only helped people who deserved it, you'd miss everyone who actually needed it. Maggie's eyes fill with tears. She sounds like she would have liked me, Maggie whispers. Daniel's throat tightens. She would have loved you, he says. And she would have been furious that the world let you fall through the cracks. A comfortable silence settles over them. But then Maggie speaks again. The social worker, she says. What did you tell her? Daniel takes a breath. That you're going to have housing, income, and support, starting immediately. Maggie's eyes widen. I can't accept that. I can't. Yes, you can. Daniel interrupts gently. Because if you don't, they'll take your son, and we're not letting that happen. But I'll be in debt to you forever. No, Daniel says firmly. You'll be employed. The housing is part of your compensation package. And the support is just human decency. Maggie stares at him, overwhelmed. I don't understand why you're doing this. 20 years ago, you stayed late with my son, Daniel says. You didn't have to. You weren't paid to. But you did it anyway, because a scared kid needed help. He pauses. I'm just returning the favor, 20 years later. With interest. Maggie closes her eyes, tears streaming. I don't even remember that night, she whispers. I know, Daniel says. That's what made it matter. You weren't doing it to be remembered. You were just doing it because it was right. Maggie is quiet for a long moment. Then, what happens? Tomorrow? When the reality sets in? When I'm not the emergency anymore? It's the question Daniel has been avoiding. Because she's right. In the moment, everything feels clear, simple, heroic. But tomorrow, there will be paperwork, complications, his business falling apart, her recovery dragging on, his daughter watching to see if he keeps his promises. Tomorrow, Daniel says slowly, we figure it out, one day at a time. And when you regret this, I won't. How do you know? Daniel thinks about Marcus on the phone. The Grayson deal, the $30 million, all the things he's already lost in 3 hours, and somehow he doesn't feel poor. He feels like he's finally investing in something that matters. Because, he says, meeting Maggie's eyes, for the first time in 6 years, I feel like I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Maggie studies his face, looking for lie, the angle, the catch. But she doesn't find one. Okay, she whispers finally. Okay, I'll accept your help. Thank you. No, Maggie says, her voice stronger now. Thank you for seeing me, for making me visible again. Daniel nods, emotion thick in his throat. Emma moves to Maggie's bedside. Can I ask you something, she says, of course. When you were alone in that bathroom before we came, what were you thinking? Maggie considers the question. I was thinking, she says slowly, that if I didn't survive, at least my baby would. That someone would find him, take care of him, that he'd have a chance even if I didn't. She pauses, fresh tears falling. I was ready to disappear, as long as he got to exist. Emma's hand finds Maggie's. You both get to exist now, she whispers. And in that moment, in that hospital room, something shifts. 3 people who were strangers 4 hours ago become something else. A family? Not quite, but something just as important. A promise kept, a circle closed, a debt repaid. Maggie's eyes drift shut, exhaustion finally winning. Daniel and Emma sit with her as she sleeps, and outside the window, the sun begins to rise on a day that none of them planned, but all of them need. Tomorrow brings paperwork, reality, and the hard work of keeping promises. But tonight, 3 lives changed forever in a bus station bathroom. And sometimes, that's where miracles begin. Dawn doesn't care about the promises you made at 3 a.m. It arrives. Anyway, demanding you keep them in daylight. Daniel wakes in the hospital chair, his neck screaming in protest. Emma is asleep across 2 chairs, her jacket bundled as a pillow. Maggie is awake, staring at the ceiling with the hollow eyes of someone who's just realized last night was real. Good. Morning, Daniel says quietly. Maggie turns her head slowly. I thought maybe I dreamed it, she whispers. The rescue, the promises, all of it. You didn't dream it. Then I need you to understand something, Maggie says, her voice stronger now. I've spent 6 months surviving on my own. I learned not to trust promises. Daniel sits up straighter. I know. So when reality hits you today, when you realize how complicated this actually is, I won't blame you for walking away. Maggie, I'm serious, she interrupts. You have a life, a business, a daughter who needs you. You don't need a charity case. Daniel leans forward. Is that what you think this is? Charity? What else would you call it? A debt repaid, a circle closed, a promise kept to someone I lost. Maggie's eyes fill with tears again, but before she can respond, the door bursts open. A man in an expensive suit storms in, mid-50s, angry, clearly used to being in charge. Daniel, what the hell is going on? He demands. Marcus, Daniel's business partner. Daniel stands slowly, positioning himself between Marcus and Maggie. Keep your voice down, Daniel says coldly. This is a hospital. This is a disaster, Marcus hisses. Grayson pulled out, completely. 30 million gone because you couldn't be bothered to show up. I was busy. Busy? Marcus looks around the room, his eyes landing on Maggie. Busy with what? With... He stops, taking in the scene. The hospital bed, the IV lines, the woman who clearly just gave birth. His expression shifts from anger to confusion. Who is this? If you've ever watched someone judge a situation they don't understand, you know this moment. Comment. Listen first, if you believe people deserve to tell their own stories before others write them. None of your business, Daniel says. It is my business when you blow up our company for what, Marcus? Daniel's voice is dangerously quiet now. Say it, for what? Marcus looks at Maggie again, then at Emma, now awake and watching with fierce eyes. He makes a calculation and chooses the wrong words. For someone who's not even family. The room goes silent. Emma stands up. Get out, she says, her voice shaking with fury. Emma, sweetheart, I didn't mean... Yes, you did, Emma interrupts. You meant exactly that. That some people matter and some people don't. That success is more important than souls. She walks to her father's side. My mom used to say you were the reason Dad forgot how to be human. I never understood what she meant. Until right now. Marcus's face flushes red. Daniel, you need to get control of your daughter. My daughter, Daniel says quietly, is the only person in this room with any clarity. He pulls out his phone, turns it on, opens his email, and types. What are you doing? Marcus asks nervously. Writing my resignation from Wright & Associates, Daniel says calmly. You can't. I built that company from nothing. I can walk away from it just as easily. You're insane. No, Daniel says, hitting send. I'm finally sane. Marcus stares at him speechless, then storms out of the room, muttering about lawyers and contracts. The door slams behind him. Silence. Maggie speaks first. Did you just quit your company? Our company. Daniel corrects. He can have it. I'll start a new one. Because of me? No, Daniel says honestly. Because of me. Because I've been building the wrong thing for 6 years. Emma hugs her father tightly. Mom would be so proud, she whispers. A nurse enters, breaking the moment. Ms. Lawson? Baby? Daniel is ready to eat, and Dr. Chen wants to discuss your discharge plan. Discharge? The word hits like cold water, because discharge means leaving the hospital, going somewhere, needing a plan that's more than promises whispered at 3 a.m. Reality has arrived. The nurse wheels in the bassinet. Baby. Daniel is awake, fussing softly. Maggie's entire face transforms when she sees him. Nothing else matters. Not Marcus, not companies, not fear, just her son. The nurse helps Maggie with positioning. This time the baby latches easier. You're getting the hang of it, the nurse says encouragingly. Maybe you remember learning to be a mother, the fear and joy mixed together. The moments when you had no idea what you were doing but did it anyway. Share this story with a new mother who needs to know she's not alone, because every mother started exactly where Maggie is now. While Maggie nurses, Dr. Chen enters, young, professional, carrying a tablet loaded with information. Ms. Lawson, let's talk about going home, she begins. Maggie's body tenses. Home. What home? You'll need 2 weeks of strict rest. No lifting anything heavier than the baby. Someone needs to be with you 24/7 for the first week. You'll need follow-up appointments at 3 days, 1 week, and 2 weeks. Dr. Chen continues listing requirements, medications, warning signs, emergency protocols. Each item another impossibility. Daniel watches Maggie's face shut down, armor going up, hope retreating. She'll have all of that, he says. Dr. Chen looks at him. And you are? Her employer, and... Daniel pauses. Friend. The word feels inadequate, but it's the only one he has. Good, Dr. Chen says, because she can't do this alone. After the doctor leaves, Maggie speaks quietly. This is where you realize it's too much, isn't it? Daniel sits in the chair beside her bed. Maggie, I'm going to tell you something true. Can you handle true right now? She nods slowly. Last night I had everything. A successful company. A reputation. Millions in the bank. He pauses. And I was emptier than I've been since Sarah died. Maggie watches him carefully. I've been chasing her ghost for 6 years, building monuments to grief, proving I could succeed without her. His voice cracks. But she didn't want monuments. She wanted me to remember how to be human. So I'm your redemption project? No, Daniel says, firmly. You're my reminder that success means nothing if you're successful alone. Emma moves closer. He's telling the truth, she says to Maggie. I've watched him for 6 years, building and building and building, and getting smaller every day. She looks at her father. Last night was the first time I've seen him big again, the way he was when Mom was alive. Tears stream down Maggie's face. I'm scared, she whispers. I'm so scared this will fall apart, that I'll wake up tomorrow and you'll be gone and I'll be right back where I started. Then we'll be scared together, Daniel says. Daniel, because I'm terrified too. Of what? Of failing you. Of making promises I can't keep. Of being the man Marcus thinks I am instead of the man Sarah believed I could be. Baby Daniel finishes nursing and immediately falls asleep in his mother's arms. Maggie looks down at her son. I named him after you, she says quietly, but I barely know you. Then we'll learn, Daniel says. One day at a time. A social worker appears in the doorway. Not Karen. Someone new, younger, with a clipboard and skeptical eyes. Ms. Lawson, I'm here to complete the home assessment evaluation before discharge. Maggie's face goes white. Home assessment? Standard procedure for at-risk mothers. We need to verify your living situation before releasing the infant into your care. At risk. The label lands like a slap. She has housing, Daniel says immediately, and full support. The social worker looks at him coolly. Are you the father? No. Family? No. Then I'll need to speak with Ms. Lawson privately. Daniel looks at Maggie. Her entire body is shaking. It's okay, he tells her. Tell the truth. All of it. But the truth, Maggie. Trust me. Daniel and Emma step into the hallway. The door closes, and through the small window they watch the social worker ask questions. Watch Maggie's face crumble as she explains. No permanent address, no job, no family, no support system. Until last night. Emma grabs her father's hand. What if they don't believe her? Then we make them believe, Daniel says. The social worker exits 20 minutes later. Her expression is unreadable. Mr. Wright, I need to see documentation of the housing and employment you mentioned. Of course, I can have everything to you by this afternoon. And I'll need to conduct a home visit before discharge. Daniel's stomach drops, because he doesn't have a home ready. Not yet. He made promises at 3 a.m. without thinking through logistics. When? He asks. Today. 4 p.m. That's only 8 hours. Standard protocol, Mr. Wright. Unless you'd prefer we arrange temporary foster care while you prepare? The threat is clear. Move fast or lose the baby. Daniel makes another decision. 4 p.m. is perfect, he says with confidence he doesn't feel. I'll text you the address. The social worker nods and walks away. Emma stares at her father. Dad, you don't have an apartment ready. No. We have 8 hours to furnish a home for a newborn and his mother. I know. How are we going to? Daniel pulls out his phone, starts making calls. The same way Sarah would have, he says, by asking for help. Sometimes miracles require logistics, and sometimes the hardest part of helping someone is admitting you can't do it alone. Daniel has 8 hours to turn promises into reality. Miracles take faith, but they also take furniture, diapers, and a working refrigerator. Daniel stands in the hospital parking lot, phone pressed to his ear, making a list that grows longer every minute. Crib, changing table, diapers, formula, bottles, clothes, a place for Maggie to sleep, to heal, to become a mother. 8 hours to build a home from nothing. Emma scrolls through her phone beside him. Dad, we need help, she says. Like, a lot of help. I know. So who do we call? Daniel. Thinks about his contacts. Business associates, investors, people who know him as successful, powerful, in control. Not as someone frantically trying to furnish an apartment for a woman he met 4 hours ago. Your mother's friends, he says suddenly. Emma looks up, surprised. From the volunteer network, the community center. They know how to mobilize fast. Emma's eyes light up. Mom's phone, she whispers. I still have her contacts. She pulls up a list Daniel hasn't looked at in 6 years. Names he remembers from another lifetime. Sarah's army of kindness. Start calling, Daniel says. Tell them what we need. Tell them it's what Sarah would want. If you've ever kept someone's phone contacts because deleting them felt like losing them twice, you understand this moment. Drop a, if you believe the people we love leave behind more than memories. They leave missions unfinished. Emma makes the first call. Mrs. Rodriguez, this is Emma Wright, Sarah's daughter. I know this is random, but I need your help. Daniel calls his property manager. I need the furnished 2-bedroom on Maple Street, available immediately. Don't care what it costs. Mr. Wright, that unit isn't cleaned yet. Previous tenant just moved out. I need it by 4 p.m. today, spotless, utilities on, kitchen stocked. A pause. That's impossible. Make it possible, Daniel says. Please, a baby's life depends on it. Something in his voice must land. I'll see what I can do. Daniel hangs up and immediately dials another number, his accountant. I need an employment contract drafted today. Entry-level administrative position, remote work, full benefits, housing stipend included. Daniel, what's going on? Something I should have done years ago. Can you do it or not? I'll have it by noon. Next call. His doctor. I need a referral for a new patient, postpartum care. She has Medicaid but needs someone good. Someone who won't judge. I know someone. Let me make calls. Call after call after call. Each one a piece of the impossible puzzle. Emma finishes her conversation, her face flushed with emotion. Mrs. Rodriguez is calling everyone from Mom's volunteer network. They're meeting us at the apartment at 1 p.m. with supplies. Really? She said. Emma's voice breaks. She said they've been waiting 6 years for someone to need them the way Mom did. That this is exactly the kind of thing she'd want them to do. Daniel pulls his daughter into a hug. Your mother had an army, he whispers, and we just called them back to duty. They return to Maggie's room. She's sleeping, baby Daniel in the bassinet beside her bed, both exhausted, both fragile. Daniel watches them and realizes this isn't about him being a hero. It's about building a system that doesn't fail people like Maggie in the first place. But first, they need to survive today. Maybe you've watched someone struggle while the system watched and did nothing. This is why communities matter more than policies. Subscribe to see how neighbors become family when institutions fail, because that's where real change begins. At 11 a.m., Daniel drives to the apartment building. Maple Street, a quiet neighborhood, safe, close to a park. The building manager meets him outside. I've got 12 people inside. Cleaning, she says. But Mr. Wright, this is asking a lot on short notice. I know, and I'm grateful. Inside, the apartment is chaos. Cleaning crews scrubbing floors, someone installing a smoke detector, another person testing the stove. It's bare, empty, just walls and potential. Daniel's phone. Mrs. Rodriguez. We're 10 minutes away. We have cribs, clothes, dishes, food. How much space do you have? Enough, Daniel says. Please tell me you have a rocking chair. 3 of them. At 1 p.m., cars start arriving. Station wagons, minivans, packed with supplies and stories. Women and men Daniel hasn't seen in years. Sarah's people. They pour into the apartment like a rescue operation, because that's exactly what it is. Where does the crib go? Someone asks. Bedroom on the right, close to the mother's room. Who needs formula? Newborn. Born last night. I brought 6 cans. And bottles. Where's the kitchen? People work without questions. Someone assembles furniture. Another stocks the pantry. A third arranges diapers and wipes in the bathroom. Emma moves through the apartment, directing traffic, her mother's organizational skills flowing through her. By 2 p.m., the apartment is transformed. A home. The living room has a comfortable couch, a rocking chair, soft lighting. The kitchen is stocked with simple meals, snacks, the basics of survival. The bedroom has a bed with clean sheets, a nightstand, a lamp. And the nursery makes Daniel's throat tight. A white crib with soft blankets, a changing table stocked with everything a baby needs, a mobile hanging above, playing soft music, stuffed animals arranged on a shelf, and on the wall someone has hung a simple wooden sign. Welcome home, Daniel. Emma finds her father staring at it. Mom would love this, she whispers. Yeah, Daniel says. She really would. Mrs. Rodriguez approaches, her eyes knowing. Sarah called me the night before she died, she says quietly. She made me promise something. Daniel turns to her. What? She said, when Daniel forgets how to see people, remind him. Make him remember that success isn't about building empires, it's about building each other up. Tears stream down Daniel's face. I forgot, he whispers. I forgot everything. But you're remembering now, Mrs. Rodriguez says, squeezing his hand. And Sarah would be so proud. By 3:30 p.m., the apartment is ready. More than ready. It's a home built by a community in 4 hours. Proof that when people care, impossible becomes inevitable. At 3:45 p.m., Daniel texts the social worker the address. Then he and Emma return to the hospital. Maggie is awake, anxiety written across her face. Did you? She begins. It's ready, Daniel says. Your home is ready. How? How did you? We asked for help, Emma says simply. And people showed up. A nurse enters. Ms. Lawson, you've been cleared for discharge. Let's get you and baby ready to go. Maggie looks terrified. What if they don't? Approve? What if the social worker? She'll approve, Daniel says with confidence. Because that apartment isn't just 4 walls. It's proof that you're not alone. At 4 p.m. exactly, they arrive at the Maple Street apartment. The social worker is already there, clipboard in hand, expression neutral. Shall we? She says. Daniel unlocks the door. The social worker steps inside and stops. She walks through slowly, methodically, checking the crib, the smoke detectors, the locks on windows, the food in the pantry, making notes. Her face reveals nothing. Maggie holds baby Daniel close, her entire body shaking. This is it, the moment that decides everything. After 20 minutes, the social worker returns to the living room. She looks at Maggie, then at Daniel, then at her clipboard. Ms. Lawson, she says slowly. Everyone holds their breath. This residence meets all safety requirements. You have adequate support and resources. She pauses, and for the first time her expression softens. I'm approving discharge. Baby Daniel can go home with you today. Maggie's legs give out. Daniel catches her before she falls. Thank you. Maggie sobs. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The social worker nods. I'll be conducting follow-up visits, weekly at first. But Ms. Lawson? Maggie looks up through tears. You have something most of the mothers I work with don't have. What? People who showed up. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. She closes her clipboard. Don't take that for granted. After the social worker leaves, Maggie stands in the middle of her new living room, her son in her arms, a home around her, people who care waiting to see if she's okay. I don't understand, she whispers. Why would strangers do this for me? Mrs. Rodriguez steps forward. Because 6 years ago, someone we loved taught us that kindness is the only currency that matters. And today we finally got to spend it the way she would have wanted. Maggie looks at Daniel. Thank you, she says. For everything. Don't thank me yet, Daniel says with a small smile. You haven't seen how bad I am at changing diapers. Emma laughs. For the first time in hours, everyone laughs. Relief, joy, exhaustion, all mixing together. Baby Daniel, sensing the mood, lets out a tiny cry. He's probably hungry, Maggie says. Then let's feed him, Daniel says. In your home. Your home. 2 words that mean everything. Maggie sits in the rocking chair, and as she nurses her son in a room filled with love, she finally believes it might be possible to survive, to heal, to be more than her worst moment. Daniel watches from the doorway, and for the first time in 6 years, he feels like he's exactly where he's supposed to be. The apartment is ready. The baby is home. But the hardest work is just beginning. Learning to trust, to heal, and to build a life worth living. Sometimes the miracle isn't the rescue. It's what comes after. Everyone tells you bringing a baby home is magical. No one tells you it's also terrifying. Maggie sits in the rocking chair, baby Daniel finally asleep in her arms after an hour of crying. It's 2 a.m. She hasn't slept in 36 hours. Her body screams with every movement. The stitches pull, her breasts ache, her head pounds, and she's never been more afraid in her life. Because in the hospital there were nurses, buttons to push, people who knew what to do. Here, it's just her, and a baby who depends on her for everything. What if she fails him? Daniel appears in the doorway, looking just as exhausted. Can't sleep either? He asks. Quietly. Maggie shakes her head. Tears slide down her cheeks. I don't know what I'm doing, she whispers. He cried for an hour. I tried feeding him, changing him, holding him. Nothing worked, and then he just stopped. Fell asleep. That's what babies do, Daniel says gently. They cry until they're done crying. But what if something was wrong? What if he was in pain and I didn't know? If you remember the first night alone with your baby, the fear that every cry meant something terrible, you understand Maggie's terror. Comment, I remember, if those first nights still live in your memory, because that fear is universal. Daniel sits on the floor beside the rocking chair. When Emma was 3 days old, she cried for 4 hours straight. Sarah and I tried everything. We were convinced something was horribly wrong. What was it? Gas, Daniel says with a tired smile. Just gas. But we didn't know that. We were terrified first-time parents who had no idea what we were doing. How did you get through it? We didn't, Daniel admits. We called Sarah's mother at 3 a.m. sobbing. She came over, took one look at Emma and said, She's fine. She's just a baby. And you're just parents. You'll figure it out. Maggie looks down at her sleeping son. What if I don't figure it out? Then we'll figure it out together, Daniel says. That's why I'm here. You can't stay forever. The words hang between them. Because she's right. This arrangement, Daniel sleeping on her couch, Emma in the guest room, this strange found family, isn't sustainable. Eventually, life will demand they return to normal. Whatever normal means now. Let's worry about forever tomorrow, Daniel says. Tonight we just survive. Baby Daniel stirs, his face scrunching. Maggie tenses, waiting for the cry. But it doesn't come. He settles back into sleep. You should rest, Daniel says. Put him in the crib. Sleep while you can. What if he needs me? Then you'll be 3 feet away. But Maggie, you're healing. Your body went through trauma. You need sleep as much as he does. Reluctantly, Maggie stands. Every muscle protests. Daniel helps her to the nursery, steadying her when she sways. She lays baby Daniel in the crib, her hands trembling as she releases him. What if he stops breathing? She whispers. He won't. But what if? Then the monitor will alert us, Daniel says, pointing to the device on the nightstand. I promise if anything changes, we'll know. Maggie forces herself to step back from the crib. One step, then another, like leaving a piece of her soul behind. Daniel guides her to her bedroom. Try to sleep, he says. Even just an hour. Will you? Maggie stops, embarrassed. Will you stay? Just until I fall asleep? Daniel nods. He sits in the chair by the window while Maggie climbs into bed. She's asleep in seconds, exhaustion finally winning. Daniel watches her for a moment. This woman who worked while pregnant, who survived alone, who gave birth on a bathroom floor, who's still fighting even in sleep. His phone buzzes. A text from his lawyer. Marcus is threatening to sue for breach of contract. We need to talk. Daniel turns the phone off. Tomorrow's problems can wait. Maybe you've had to choose between the urgent and the important. Between what the world demands and what your soul knows is right. Share this if you've ever put someone's need above your own convenience, because that's how we change the world, one choice at a time. At 5 a.m., baby Daniel wakes screaming. Maggie bolts upright, disoriented. Where is she? What's happening? Then she remembers. Her apartment, her son, her new life. She stumbles to the nursery, every step agony. Baby Daniel's face is bright red, his tiny fists waving furiously. I'm here, baby. Mama's here. She lifts him, and the smell hits her. A diaper. Just a diaper. Relief floods through her. Something she can fix. She carries him to the changing table, but when she tries to remove the diaper, her hands shake so badly she can't manage the tabs. Come on, she mutters. Come on. The baby screams louder. Maggie's vision blurs with tears. I'm sorry, I'm trying, Warm hands cover. Warm hands. Hers. Daniel. Let me, he says gently. Together they change the diaper. Daniel's hands steady where hers shake. His calm grounding her panic. There, he says. All clean. Baby Daniel stops crying immediately. Maggie sags against the changing table. I can't even change a diaper without falling. Apart, she whispers. You just had major surgery 2 days ago, Daniel reminds her. You're not supposed to be able to do everything. But I have to. I'm his mother. Being his mother doesn't mean being superhuman, Daniel says. It means keeping him alive. Fed. Loved. Everything else, we figure. Out as we go. Maggie looks at him. Why are you really doing this? She asks. And don't say it's about 20 years ago. That doesn't explain waking up at 5 a.m. to change diapers. Daniel is quiet for a long moment. When Sarah was dying, he finally says, she made me promise something. She said, don't let my death make you smaller. Let it make you bigger. He pauses. I broke that promise. I got smaller, built walls, focused on success instead of significance. And I'm your redemption? No, Daniel says firmly. You're my reminder. That significance looks like this. 5 a.m. diaper changes. Staying when it's hard. Showing up when no one expects you to. He meets her eyes. You don't owe me gratitude, Maggie. If anything, I owe you. For giving me a reason to remember who I was supposed to become. Tears stream down Maggie's face. I'm so tired, she whispers. I know. And scared. I know that too. What if I can't do this? Daniel takes baby Daniel from her arms. Then we'll do it together. One diaper at a time. He carries the baby to the rocking chair. Go back to bed. Sleep. I've got him. But, Maggie, you're healing. Let me help. That's what I'm here for. Reluctantly, Maggie returns to her bedroom. But she doesn't sleep. She lies in bed listening to Daniel's soft voice in the next room. Singing a lullaby she vaguely recognizes. His voice is terrible. Off-key. Completely unself-conscious. And somehow, that makes it perfect. At 7 a.m., Emma emerges from the guest room. How's everyone doing? She asks, finding her father still in the rocking chair, baby Daniel asleep on his chest. Surviving, Daniel says with a tired smile. That's all we're aiming for? For now? That's everything. Emma looks toward Maggie's closed bedroom door. Is she okay? She's exhausted, terrified, overwhelmed. So, normal new mother stuff? Normal new mother stuff without support, money, or experience. Daniel corrects. Which is significantly harder. Emma sits on the arm of the rocking chair. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. What happens when she doesn't need us anymore? When she's stable and healed and can do this alone? Daniel considers the question. Then we'll have done our job. But what if... Emma hesitates. What if I don't want to go back to how things were? Before all this? Daniel looks at his daughter. Really looks at her. And sees someone who's been waiting for him to wake up for 6 years. Me neither, he admits. So what do? We figure out what comes next, Daniel says. Together. A knock at the door interrupts them. Daniel carefully places baby Daniel in his bassinet and answers. It's Mrs. Rodriguez carrying bags of food. I figured you'd all be too tired to cook, she says. Behind her, 3 other women from Sarah's volunteer network. We're doing shifts, one explains. Someone will check in every day, bring food, help with whatever's needed. You don't have to, Daniel begins. We know, Mrs. Rodriguez says. But Sarah built a community, and communities show up. She pauses. Besides, Maggie's one of us now. We take care of our own. Emma helps them unload food into the kitchen, casseroles, soups, meals that just need reheating, provisions for survival. When Maggie emerges an hour later, the apartment smells like home, and the table is surrounded by women she doesn't know. who somehow feel like family anyway. We made breakfast, Mrs. Rodriguez says. Sit, eat, let us fuss over you. Maggie sits, overwhelmed. I don't understand, she whispers. Why are you all doing this? One of the women, an older grandmother with kind eyes, speaks. Because 30 years ago I was you. Single mother, no support, terrified, and a stranger showed up with diapers and kindness. She pauses. I never forgot her, and I promised myself that when I could, I'd be that stranger for someone else. Another woman nods. We've all been saved by strangers at some point. This is how we pay it forward. Maggie looks around the table, at faces that were strangers 24 hours ago, who are now witnesses to her survival. Thank you, she whispers. No thanks needed, Mrs. Rodriguez says. Just promise us. One thing. What? That someday when you're on your feet, you'll do the same for someone else. Maggie nods, tears streaming. I promise. Baby Daniel starts crying from the other room. Maggie starts to stand, but one of the women gently pushes her back down. You eat. We'll get him. And for first time in 6 months, Maggie lets someone else carry the weight. Just for a moment. Just long enough to breathe. Daniel watches from the kitchen doorway and realizes this is what Sarah meant. Not grand gestures, not monuments, just people showing up. One meal at a time, one diaper at a time, one moment of grace at a time, building a life worth living, together. The first night survived, but there are many more ahead. Some will be harder, some will test every promise made. But for now, in this moment, there is food, community, and hope. Sometimes that's enough. Time doesn't heal all wounds, but it does teach you which scars made you stronger. Maggie stands at the window of her apartment, watching snow fall softly on Maple Street. Baby Daniel, no longer quite so small, sits in his bouncer, cooing at a stuffed elephant. 6 months. 6 months since a bus station bathroom. Since blood on tile floors. Since promises whispered at 3 a.m. 6 months of learning to be a mother. To accept help. To believe she deserves both. The apartment looks lived in now. Photos on the walls. Toys scattered across the floor. The organized chaos of a life being built one day at a time. Maggie is stronger, healthier. Her body healed, though some scars remain. But the biggest changes are the ones no one can see. She no longer flinches when someone offers help, no longer apologizes for existing, no longer believes she has to survive alone. A knock at the door. Daniel and Emma, right on time, for their weekly Sunday dinner, a tradition that started as necessity and became family. How's my little man? Daniel asks, scooping up baby Daniel, who squeals with delight. The baby knows him, loves him, reaches for him like he's always been there. Because in the only life this child remembers, he has been. Emma hugs Maggie. You look good, she says. I feel good, Maggie admits. Really good. And it's true. The administrative job Daniel created for her turned out to be real work. Meaningful work. She's good at it. If you've ever rebuilt your life from nothing, you know this moment. When you realize you're not just surviving anymore, you're living. Comment, I rebuilt, if you know the pride of standing on your own 2 feet again. They eat dinner together, pasta and salad, simple, comfortable. Baby Daniel sits in his high chair, enthusiastically smashing sweet potatoes into his hair. He's got your determination, Daniel observes, watching Maggie patiently clean the baby's face for the 3rd time. And your stubbornness, Maggie counters with a smile. Emma laughs. It's easy, natural, the rhythm of people who've become essential to each other. But there's something different. Tonight. An energy Maggie can't quite identify. After. Chapter 10. 6 months later. They say it takes a village to raise a child. What they don't tell you is that sometimes the village has to be built from scratch. Maggie stands at the window of her apartment, watching the sunrise paint the sky. Orange and pink. Baby Daniel, not so tiny anymore, sleeps in his crib behind her. 6 months old today. Half a year since that night in the bus station bathroom. Half a year since her life split into before and after. She looks different now. Healthier. Her hair is longer, pulled back in a simple ponytail. The dark circles under her eyes have faded, though they haven't disappeared completely. Motherhood doesn't allow for perfect sleep, but it allows for something better. Purpose. The apartment has changed too. Photos line the walls now. Baby Daniel at 1 month, 2 months. His first smile, captured at 8 weeks. And one photo that makes her throat tight every time she sees it. Daniel Wright holding baby Daniel in the hospital, hours after birth, his expensive suit ruined, and his face transformed by wonder. The man who stayed when he could have left. If you've kept a photo of someone, who changed your life in a single moment, you understand why Maggie can't look away from this one. Drop a if you have a picture that tells a story words can't capture. A knock at the door interrupts her thoughts. She opens it to find Emma, now 16, holding coffee and pastries. Morning, Emma says with a smile. Dad's in a meeting, so I brought breakfast. You didn't have to. I know, Emma interrupts. But I wanted to. Plus, I need baby snuggles before school. They've settled into this routine over the past 6 months. Emma stopping by before school. Daniel checking in during lunch. Breaks. Mrs. Rodriguez and the volunteer network rotating visits throughout the week. A schedule built on showing up. Emma picks up baby Daniel, who's just waking up. Hey, little man, she coos. Happy 6-month birthday. The baby grins, a real, full-faced smile that makes his eyes crinkle. He's getting so big, Emma says. I know, Maggie says softly. Sometimes I can barely remember him fitting in one hand. She pauses. Sometimes I can barely remember the person I was 6 months ago. Emma looks at her carefully. In a good way? Maggie considers the question. 6 months ago, she was invisible, surviving but not living, working herself to exhaustion with no hope for anything better. Now, in a complicated way, Maggie says honestly, I'm grateful, so grateful it hurts. But also what? Also scared that it's temporary, that I'll wake up and this will all disappear. Emma sits on the couch, baby Daniel in her lap. You know what my mom used to say? What? That fear of losing something good is just proof you're finally living. Dead people don't worry about losing anything. Maggie smiles despite herself. Your mother was wise. She was, Emma agrees. And she would have loved you. The words land gently, but they land. Because Maggie has spent 6 months in the shadow of Sarah Wright's legacy, the apartment provided by a woman who believed in kindness, the community mobilized by a woman who built networks of care, the daughter and husband trying to honor a promise made in a hospital room years ago. Sometimes Maggie wonders if she's living her own life or borrowing someone else's. Baby Daniel starts fussing. Someone's hungry, Emma says, handing him to Maggie. Maggie settles into the rocking chair, the same one she's nursed in hundreds of times now. The motion automatic, comfortable, hers. Emma watches with something like admiration. You make it look easy now. It's not, Maggie says. But I've learned that most things worth doing aren't easy. They just become familiar. Maybe you remember when caring for your child stopped feeling impossible and started feeling like breathing. Comment I remember if you survived those early months and came out stronger, because that transformation deserves recognition. After Emma leaves for school, Maggie's phone rings. Daniel. Hey, he says, his voice warm. How's the birthday boy? Perfect. Smiley. Growing too fast. They do that, Daniel says. Listen, can we talk later? In person? Something in his tone makes Maggie's stomach clench. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, Daniel assures her. There are some things we need to discuss. About the future. The future. The word Maggie has been avoiding for 6 months. Because the present is manageable. The present is survive today, wake up tomorrow, repeat. But the future requires planning, decisions, facing the reality that this arrangement can't last forever. Okay, Maggie says quietly. When? Tonight? After you. Put Daniel down. Okay. Daniel hangs up, and Maggie sits in the rocking chair, her son in her arms, wondering what the future means. Is he ending this arrangement? Has she overstayed her welcome? Has the charity run its course? She looks around the apartment that became home and realizes she's strong enough to lose it now. 6 months ago, losing this would have destroyed her. Now, it would hurt, but she'd survive. Because she's not the same person who cleaned toilets at 8 months pregnant. She's someone who fought her way back from the edge and learned she's stronger than she ever imagined. That evening, after baby Daniel is asleep, Daniel arrives. He looks nervous, more nervous than she's seen him since that first night. Should I be worried? Maggie asks, trying to keep her voice light. No, Daniel says quickly. No, definitely not. I need to talk to you about something important. He sits on the couch, running his hands through his hair. A gesture Maggie has learned means he's about to say something difficult. The past 6 months have been, he begins, then stops. They've changed me, changed Emma, changed everything. I know, Maggie says quietly. They've changed me too. When I met you in that bathroom, I thought I was helping you. But the truth is, you saved me. Maggie blinks, confused. Daniel, I was literally dying on a bathroom floor. And you reminded me what it means to be human. Daniel interrupts. To care about something more than success. To show up even when it's hard. He pauses. I've been working on something for the past 3 months. He pulls out a folder. What is this? A foundation, Daniel says. The Sarah Wright Foundation for Single Parent Support, housing assistance, job training, child care, medical care. Everything you needed and couldn't find. Maggie stares at him. You created a foundation. Because of me? Because of you? Because of Sarah? Because of every parent who falls through the cracks while society watches. He opens the folder. And I want you to run it. Maggie's breath catches. What? You know what it's like, you've lived it. No one is more qualified to help others through this than someone who survived it themselves. Daniel, I don't have experience with. You have the only experience that matters, Daniel says firmly. You know what it feels like to be invisible, to be judged, to need help and not know where to find it. He pauses. You can teach others what you learned and make sure no one else has to clean bathrooms at 8 months pregnant because society failed them. Tears stream down Maggie's face. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Daniel urges. Say you'll take this pain you survived and transform it into purpose. Maggie looks at the folder, at the logo someone designed, a circle of hands, supporting each other, at the mission statement that echoes her own story. This is real? She whispers. This is real. Funded. Ready to launch. We have office space, a board of directors, Mrs. Rodriguez and her network as volunteers. But I'm still healing, still learning how to be a mother. So you'll work part-time, Daniel says. From home when you need to. We'll build this around your life, not force your life around it. He meets her eyes. Maggie, you've spent 6 months proving you can survive. Now I'm asking you to help others do the same. If someone once gave you a chance you didn't think you deserved and it changed everything, you know this feeling. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that. Their struggle has purpose, because survival is just the beginning. Maggie stands, walking to the window, the same window where she watched the sunrise this morning, where she's watched hundreds of sunrises over 6 months, each one proof she made it through another night. When I was in that bathroom, she says quietly, I thought my story was over, that I'd give birth and disappear and no one would remember I existed. She turns to face Daniel. But you saw me. You remembered. And you decided my story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Tears stream down her face. Yes, she whispers. Yes, I'll do it. Daniel stands, relief flooding his face. Thank you. Thank you for trusting me. No, Maggie interrupts. Thank you. For everything. For staying. for building this, for making me believe I'm worth more than survival. They stand in the quiet apartment. Two people whose lives collided in a moment of crisis. Who built something beautiful from the wreckage? What do we do now? Maggie asks. Now? Daniel smiles. Now we change the system that failed you. One parent at a time. 3 months later, the Sarah Wright Foundation opens its doors. The ribbon-cutting ceremony is small but meaningful. Mrs. Rodriguez in the volunteer network, Emma beaming with pride, and Maggie, holding 9-month-old Daniel, speaking to a small crowd. 6 months ago I was invisible, she says, her voice steady. The system saw me as a problem to be managed, not a person to be helped. She pauses. But one person saw me differently. One person remembered that I'd once helped his family, and he decided to return the favor. 20 years later, she looks at Daniel. That's what this foundation is about. Not charity, not pity, but remembering that we're all one crisis away from needing help and choosing to be the person who stays. The crowd applauds, and as Maggie cuts the ribbon, baby Daniel in one arm, she realizes her story didn't end in that bathroom. It began there, because sometimes the worst moment of your life is just the prologue to the best chapter. 1 year. After that night, Maggie stands in the foundation office. Wall charts track families helped, resources distributed, lives changed, 37 families in the first year, 37 people who didn't have to clean bathrooms while pregnant, who didn't have to choose between food and prenatal care, who were seen, helped, reminded they mattered. Emma volunteers after school, helping with childcare while parents attend job training. Daniel serves as board president, using his business expertise to expand their reach. And Maggie? Maggie runs the foundation with the fierce protectiveness of someone who knows exactly what's at stake, because she lived it. Her phone rings. A new referral. A woman, 7 months pregnant, just lost her job. I'll take it, Maggie says immediately. Because she knows that woman. She was that woman, and now, she's the person who stays. That evening, Maggie sits in her rocking chair. Baby Daniel, now a toddler, asleep in his bed. Photos covering the walls of their home, evidence of a life built from nothing. She thinks about the woman she was a year ago, invisible, exhausted, alone, and whispers to that version of herself, "You made it, you survived, and now you're helping others do the same." A knock at the door. Daniel and Emma carrying dinner. "We thought you might be too tired to cook," Emma says. "You thought right," Maggie says with a smile. They eat together, this strange family built from crisis and kindness. And as Maggie watches Daniel help clean up, Emma play with baby Daniel, she realizes home isn't a place. It's people who choose to stay, even when they don't have to, especially then. Some stories end with happily ever after. This one ends with something better, happily ever continuing, because the best endings are really just beginnings in disguise. And sometimes the person you save ends up saving you right back. Thank you for following Maggie's journey. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to remember. You are not invisible. You are not alone. And your worst moment might just be the beginning of your most beautiful chapter.